All right, hello and welcome to another LedgeView Partners webinar, today in collaboration with Inside View. I'm Julia Flaherty, the Marketing Coordinator at LedgeView Partners. We are a business and technology consulting company who partners with organizations to transform sales, marketing, and customer service operations and processes that are supported by core technologies, including customer relationship management and marketing automation. We're glad to have you here today, and we do have a full agenda for you. But before we can dive in, I just have a few quick housekeeping notes to cover. So bear with me and sit back and enjoy a warm beverage as we get started. It is fall after all. Well, at least here in Wisconsin it is. For those of you that have been on our webinars before, welcome back. And for you newbies, thank you for joining us for the first time. We can't wait to see you back for more webinars. We will be taking up about an hour of your time today, and the webinar is being recorded and will be available on demand after the live session. All attendees will receive a follow-up email after the webinar is complete with a link to access it. We encourage you to share this within your company and professional networks. To ensure the best audio quality, we have everyone on listen-only mode. But if you do have a question or comment, please submit those in the question pane of your GoToWebinar control panel, and Michelle or LedgeView will follow up with you afterwards, depending on the nature of your question. Now that that's out of the way, it's time to introduce Michelle Horn, Aligned Success Manager at Inside View. Michelle thrives off of growing businesses. At Inside View, they are the architects of CRM intelligence, helping companies market and sell smarter. And now it's time to welcome Michelle and let her take things over. Michelle, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you so much for having me today. So this is packed. So this is all about using Insights powered by Inside View and LinkedIn Sales Navigator together as a dynamic duo. So today's presentation is going to be a combination of PowerPoint slides and real-world demos because we want to make sure that we set the stage and sometimes give you some stuff to digest with your eyes when you go watch this later. And so it's really about jumping back and forth and making sure that hopefully that outweighs the clicking that we're going to do. So it's about this workflow of really doing account research and how do you really dig into an account using both. So the agenda today is really about understanding each platform's origins, because that's really will help us figure out what the next thing is. So I will tell you that I am not a LinkedIn Sales Navigator expert. I've done a ton of research for this, and I'm a geek at heart, so I really love analyzing things. So it's totally possible I could be wrong about something. If you know I got something wrong, please do let me know. Really, the intention today is how to use both. So when we talk about this, it's meant to be a day in the life of a customer-facing person, and believe it or not, there's really only about a 20% overlap between the two products. So I'm going to start with Insights first, just because it's included with most Dynamics online licenses in the US and Canada. If you're not in that vein, talk to us. You can do something different, but it's included with most of it. So Insights sits inside of CRM, so typically I'm going to start there, and then because it's fully integrated, which means most users don't know that it's not technically turned on, you actually have to turn it on, and then I'm going to enhance all of those findings by digging even deeper into LinkedIn Sales Navigator. So that's how we'll work this. LinkedIn Sales Navigator, on the other hand, is part of the Microsoft Dynamics Relationship Sales License. The widget that we refer to is available in online and on-prem, but only the syncing that I'll talk about is only for the online world. And additionally, since LinkedIn Sales Navigator is for a fee, there's some of you that may not necessarily have that yet. So that's why we'll also start with Insights. So to set the stage, we all have the same sales challenges. 92% of buyers ignore unsolicited calls or emails. According to an Accenture study, only 77% of buyers don't think their sales reps add value or understand their business, and this leads to turnover. This leads to losing customers. This leads to kind of us being seen as a commodity from a sales perspective, so we do not want that. And then for me, the most staggering one is only 7% of salespeople get a second meeting. So how do we have different conversations? So in order to achieve higher response rates, if we only have the company and contact data, so think about it as salespeople, if we only have company and contact data, we're going to get a lot of people hanging up the phone or ignoring our calls and emails. So the question is how do we do a better job of that? If you have insights, and Microsoft uses this word widely. We're going to call them business events. If there's something specific that's happened in a business and we talk about that and we are relevant and we are focused on that, we have a 24 to 32% chance of engaging with the person. That starts getting interesting from a sales perspective. And then, of course, it's still about connections. If you have a warm introduction in, you have somewhere between a 44% and 84% chance of having an engaging conversation, and that's external and internal is how those numbers differ. So let's talk about the platforms. So it's important to understand the origin of the platform so that we can see how the two solutions work differently. So Inside View was created to give you a place to do account research, to give you a leg up on sales. And the genesis was because our CEO was trying to figure out why some of the sales folks were rock stars and others were struggling. So he figured out that as rock stars knew a ton about their accounts, and so he decided to put a bow around. What happens if you put a bow around that and give it to your salespeople? Does it elevate everybody? And then LinkedIn, on the other hand, was created as a community really to network and was originally kind of used for job hunting. And then herein lies how the data is collected and how they function a little bit differently. So if we talk about the company data, so Inside View was designed really initially to go after really larger companies, and then broadened our scope to go to smaller companies that are 5+ employees. So we don't talk about micro SMBs is what we call those, the little ones. And so we don't spend a ton of time because they don't spend a ton of money. So from a people perspective, right, Inside View is looking at decision makers only. That's management typically, and so that's going to be about 10 to 20% of a company. We are going to be integrated into CRM, meaning you won't know the difference between us and Microsoft. And we can synchronize or pull down some of our data, and we'll talk about that. And then our whole goal is we are a technology aggregator. So we aggregate data from a bunch of places, over 40,000 sources, wash it and put it into one place and try to build really rich profiles. So LinkedIn, again, a networking community. So they have, from a company perspective, they want everybody to participate, but if you don't participate, you're not there, right? They want all people to participate. Again, if you don't participate, they're not there. And they also are good from having they can have all the way up from the owner or C-level all the way down to a janitor, right? They'll take everybody. That's their whole point about being a network. You can only see their data in CRM, and I'll show you that. And then all of their content is user generated, which there are pros and cons for both of how we collect our data, and that's why it's really great to use both together. So let's go dig into an account. So I'm going to talk about the different types of data, and actually then we're going to jump into a real life world. How would I do both? So when we talk about account data from a company perspective, because we, Inside View, are data aggregators, we have about 7 million companies in the United States. We are global, but we're going to kind of focus on the United States today. LinkedIn, on the other hand, because it's only people that want to participate, and they also might have some of those micro SMBs, they just have a different number. They're not going to quite have as many because that's not what they focus on. When we talk about Pharma Graphics, we're going to go super deep because we're an aggregator. They're going to have some basics that are company generated. Social feeds, Inside View talks about the company's Facebook page, the company's Twitter page, and company blog posts. LinkedIn is about what do you want to share? Tell us what you want to talk about. So they're going to be a little different. We'll have financials, and Inside View will have the family tree. So I'm going to talk about Pharma Graphics and then dive into side by side. So Pharma Graphics are something that a lot of people are keen in on as we try to always keep our data consistent and have the more data so that we can do a better job at reporting and BI and all these other things. So from a Pharma Graphics standpoint, Insights powered by Inside View is going to have all of these Pharma Graphics built in the red, and you can get more. And LinkedIn Sales Navigator is going to show you a couple things, but you can't pull those down. So let's talk about how we do that. So here's my day in the life of slide. This is the account research steps that I'm going to go through. And so let me jump into CRM, and this is just for if you show this to somebody else, you say, oh, you do these steps and then these steps in the two different ones. So let's jump into CRM. This is my Amgen account. When I land on my Amgen account, Insights by default sits over here in this small area on the right-hand side. And when you see Amgen for the very first time, you can actually see the Pharma Graphics. The next time I land here, it's always going to show me what's called a summary pane, which is a bunch of news, and we're trying to give you a bunch of information. And this is where Microsoft thought we would provide the most value, because we're always trying to pepper you with, did you know? Did you know? Hey, you should know this. right? So that's where we land. So when we're here, the things that we can do here are a couple things. First and foremost, if you want to pull our data down, if you can notice that there's annual revenues blank, the number of employees, and some other fields on the left, if you want to pull our data down, you'll hit these two little buttons. You knock, knock, knock on our door. We do a side-by-side comparison with what you have in your CRM, and then we come back and we say, this is what we have versus what you have. Let's give you the data, and you can choose to overwrite it or not. And so it does take a second the first time you do this, because we're going through every single field you have, about 14 fields, and giving you what we have. So you can see here we're going to fill in the SIC code, the revenue, the employees, HQ phone number, website, so on and so forth. So when I do that as a user, I can update the account. We're going to push all of that data into your CRM, and it's one way only. We don't take any of your data. It's one way only, and then what's going to happen is now you're going to have a really rich record of what's going on in an account. So that's what I'm going to do first. The next thing I'm going to do is, if I care about Amgen and I want to keep my finger on the pulse, meaning anytime they get a specific type of update, I want you to let me know. I'm going to go click on this little eyeball, and this little eyeball is what's called a watch list, and I will show you that in a minute, and I'll do a side-by-side comparison. This little eyeball means that I'm going to watch them, and anytime something specific comes up, it's going to let me know in my email. Okay, and only for the companies I care about am I going to watch. So I'm now watching them. So Inside View also has the capability of, if we matched it wrong, you can rematch it. Even more important, if we got something wrong, you can tell us. So you cannot do that in LinkedIn. If there's something incorrect on LinkedIn, they have no control over it. So only the company does. However, because we're a data aggregator, if we got an address wrong or an employee count wrong or something, you can tell us, and we'll fix it in 24 hours if we can verify that, right? So that's something that's a little bit different between the two. All right, so that's me kind of going through here. So now what I want to do is I'm actually going to go do some research about my account. So I want to put my arms around them. I want to dig in. This is my strategy. How am I going to be irrelevant? What am I going to say? So this is the research component here. So in the research component, what I'm looking for is a couple of things. If I sell horizontally, meaning to a lot of different types of companies, manufacturers, professional services, biopharmaceutical, this is a really nice little one-page overview down here of what does that industry look like. If you sell vertically, not necessarily as usable, but this is really usable when you sell horizontally. So I'm going to understand that. Similar accounts is where we recommend other accounts. If Amgen's a perfect customer for you, we'll recommend some other ones. LinkedIn also does that, and I'll show you that. And then financials. If they're public, we actually have most of their financial data, most of the things that you would want to dig into. They're 10K, they're 8, they're 10Q, they're 8K, they're 11K. If it's not a public company, then what we'll show you there is just other types of news that we think might be relevant. Okay, so I'm still wrapping my arms around the account. What do I need to know about them? I'm going to go to the family tree, which is where are they in the food chain. On the left are wholly owned operating subsidiaries. On the right are companies that have acquired and absorbed and are no longer in business. So this is where are they, top, middle, bottom. For the buzz, this is what they're saying. What are they saying? What are they saying in their blog posts? What are they saying in Twitter? And then I can also add my Facebook posts here as well. Just go click on a button. It logs me into Facebook, and then it's going to add those to my list as well. Super simple. I just continue on, and it gives me access in. Okay. So think of this like a window into their Twitter page and their Facebook page without you having to go search them out themselves. So I do all of that, and now what I'm going to start digging into is I'm really going to start digging into the news. That's something that's really important for me. So let's go to the news, and we'll kind of talk about that. So I'm going to go click on the research, the overview tab over here, and this is the news. And so there's 3 reasons that we really want to wrap our arms around the news. The first one is we're trying to figure out a way to break into an account. So today we need to be super relevant to break through that noise. 2, it's really hard to know which accounts you should be spending time on. If you have 100 accounts, it's your book of accounts, you can't spend time on 100 of them. But if something specific was happening, you could figure out 10 to go spend their time on. And so the news can help you prioritize which accounts to target. And 3, if you own an account, it's important that you always retain that customer and you continue to grow your footprint. What's going on? What should I know? What's good? What are the good things that are happening and what are the bad things that are happening? So when we dig into the news, what we do with Insights is Insights categorizes their news, and I'll talk about this a little bit more in a second. But one of the things that I may want to do, in addition to just getting some very specific types of news, we're giving you categorized news. They're outperforming, they're underperforming, so on and so forth. One of the top types of news that we give people are leadership changes, and that's actually probably the most common one. If leadership changes is a good way for me to break in and have a conversation, I can go specifically get rid of the noise, go right to the leadership changes, and then maybe that's what I write an email about. So remember we were talking about that 24 to 32% bump. It's when you go do something like this and you write an email that's very specific about, hey, look, you got this job or somebody else got this job, you probably have these problems, let us help you, or we've solved these problems for other companies. That's when you really can break through the noise. And we get about a 20% response rate on those emails and phone calls, which as a salesperson is ridiculous. So this is the news that we're looking for. So once I wrap my arms around the news in Insights, right? Again, we're in CRM, we're in Insights. Now what I want to do is I want to go see what they're saying on LinkedIn. So I happen to have LinkedIn in a collapsed section over here called LinkedIn Sales Navigator. So now I've done my stuff in Insights. I'm going to flip over into LinkedIn. I personally, in LinkedIn, I like to go to the view the account. When I view the account, it's going to pop me into another window in my browser, and then it's going to fill up the space. And then it's going to talk to me about the stuff for Amgen. So this is my Amgen account. So again, we were talking about the news specifically. So when I go to the news and insights for Amgen and click here, it's got 2 things. It's got some news and updates, and here's the categories that they have. They will show you the news, and I'll actually show you an example of how our news differs. We're going to show a ton more news, which is why I started also with Insights. So there's some account news, but what I want to go to is I want to go to the account shares. What are they talking about? Or what are their people in their company sharing? So if I go to account shares, very specific, it's going to say what they've been posting. What are they talking about? And that's what I want to do, is I want to wrap my arms around that news. When I'm in an account, I can save them. This Amgen happens to already be saved. I can save them, which means I kind of tag them and keep watching them in LinkedIn. I can also create a note. If I create a note at this level, it will ask me if I want to copy it to CRM. Okay, and so in that case, you could push it back into CRM. In this case, we'll just close them back out, but that's how you would be able to have the 2 talk together. So you can see here really quick, the Pharma Graphics that they have biotech in the LA area, a range of employees with a size. So we're just going to be more specific, and you can grab that and pull that all down into your CRM if you use Insights. Okay. All right, so now let's talk about, I'm going to get really specific about the news, because the news is a really great way to dig deeper, and I just want to show you some deltas. And this is one of the reasons why I spent some time, more time in Insights. So this was that 32 to 40, 24 to 32% chance. That's where I want to dig in here. So this is where the news is going to be different. So Insights, we have 18 very specific business agents that we're listening for and categorizing into. And then LinkedIn does a little bit more general and not as much news. And you'll see that in a side-by-side I show you. We're going to categorize it. Custom agents. So if you think about these things that we listen for, these leadership changes or these funding developments or these real estate deals, you can also set up your own in Insights. And we do delve into that in an admin class, but you can set up your own. So let's say LedgeView wants to listen for people in IT, or LedgeView wants to listen for people in finance titles, or they want to listen for companies in very specific types of industries. You can do all those things in Insights. You cannot do that in LinkedIn Sales Navigator. So it's kind of from a news perspective, you get what you get. From an email perspective, I'm actually going to show you that in a second. I'll show you how we email news both from us and from LinkedIn. From a visibility standpoint, Insights is going to sit in 5 places in your CRM. That little window shows in your accounts, your contacts, your leads, and your ops, and you can put some news in your dashboards. LinkedIn Sales Navigator, on the other hand, has a widget box, and that box can be put in all sorts of places. So that's kind of a cool thing. News sources are going to be a little bit different. Their news is more limited, and I cannot tell you why. I can just tell you we have a ton more news than they have. We're both listening to PR Wires. We do blog posts, they do shared items. So let me show you those news things that I was talking about side by side. So these are 2 examples of the emails that we send out. So on the left is the Insights emails. So here you could see I was watching this company called Paribas, PNB Paribas. They had a finance exec in the news and a leadership change, and they were outperforming in a funding development. Citigroup had some things going on. Bristol Myers Squibb had things going on. If you look at the same day with LinkedIn, they just don't give me as much. It's just not as rich on the news. And again, they are not a data aggregator, right? They're a community. So that is going to explain it. So they give me a couple company shares, a couple people that I may want to talk to. And then if I want to go dig deeper, I need to go click on See All and go into LinkedIn and just start digging myself. So I think from that standpoint, I like the Insights is going to give you a bunch of news in your email. If you read it daily, you've got it. And then for LinkedIn, we're going to go look for the things that they're sharing to understand what they want to talk about. All right, so let me pop back to the news. So let me talk about our news agents. These are the things we listen for. These are those 18 things I was telling you about. You can create your own, but it's super specific. If they had a charity event, we don't care about charity events, right? If they have something that doesn't fall into one of these 18 specific agents, we typically aren't going to show you. We are trying to get rid of the noise. So that's what we're trying to do. So it's super specific. Okay, and then you, of course, can go create your own. So let me show you an exact day in the life of. So this was back in July. So this was Insights on the left, LinkedIn, Sales Navigator on the right. This happened to be July 30th. So we had 7 different pieces of news on one day. They had 1. And this was public news, not what they shared. This was their public news. So that's why we kind of go back, is if I wrap my arms around the news and insights, then I'll get less in LinkedIn sales. So just go find out the things that they're sharing, right? So it's an easier way to wrap your arms around an account. All right, so if you guys have any questions, please let me know. Happy to go deeper on any of those. So let me dig into contacts now. So I've wrapped my arms around an account. Now I'm going to go try to find people. We do find that a lot of people are good at targeting companies. It's the finding people that is harder. So, and just to put this in perspective, it's important to set everyone's expectation on data. Data is like water. It's fluid and ever changing, and you can't put water in your hands and expect it to stay there. So data is a snapshot in time, and it's really hard to keep up to date. Companies don't change that often, so it's easier to keep track of that data, but people change jobs and titles all the time. As a matter of fact, in the next 60 minutes alone, 170 C-level, only C-level people will assume a new directorship role, right? Some kind of C-level role. So that's why it gets so hard for anybody to track data, both us, both LinkedIn, and anybody else that plays the data game. So this is kind of to set your expectations. So perfect data is not possible, and that's why, again, we want to use both together. What we give you and what they give you, when you put those together, right, we're going to support each other or help you kind of figure out what the delta is. So this was just an example. As I was doing this research for the presentation, I was looking at this guy, Bob Azelby at Amgen. And when I looked at his LinkedIn record, what I realized is that he had moved to Adler Bio. And I also found that he had a second LinkedIn profile, which I assume is abandoned, right? You can kind of see the different dates here. So the thing is user-generated content can be super awesome if people are keeping their LinkedIn profiles up to date. For those players, meaning the people that play the digital game, the only data point that I see that's questionable sometimes is titles, like on LinkedIn. And I know lots of people don't use their given title. My husband has a made-up one. One of my sales execs has a made-up one, and we'll kind of talk about her. She's my guinea pig, in example. And then also what I had forgotten is some people, instead of doing a title, they'll do their experience in LinkedIn, because you can do whatever you want. So I've also found all kinds of interesting things like Batman Robin, Batman Spider-Man, Batman Bruce. So you can make up your own world in LinkedIn. And then there's an issue with slackers like me. I'm a slacker. I updated my title finally after 3 years, just a couple weeks ago because I was trying to post something. So I am in the slacker category for sure. So people also abandon their profiles intentionally and accidentally. So you can see Bob, it was probably an accident. If you can't get the right login information, you can't get back in. And it's really hard actually sometimes to email LinkedIn and say, hey, look, can you put these two together? So they have an issue with abandonment, and it's a known issue. They would never say they don't. People passed away, they can't get into the profile. So it's not exactly perfect. We're not perfect either, by the way. So we have a whole different set of issues trying to find people. So, you know, in this example, I had Bob still at Amgen when he had gone to Adler Bio. So it's just important that everybody understand that data is really hard to track. And if you find it with us and you find it on LinkedIn, you're probably pretty solid. If there's some differences, then that's where we have to engage with our brains and start saying, LinkedIn has it here, Inside View has it here, so which one is more accurate? But it is going to help you all in wrapping your arms around these people. So here's a little bit about contacts. So where you'll find that Inside View is stronger is that people that don't have a LinkedIn footprint. And what that typically resonates in maybe companies that are not so new school, kind of old school companies, is that you'll see that people don't necessarily care about LinkedIn. It's also super geospecific. If you're in the San Francisco Bay Area, everybody's on LinkedIn. If you're in, I'm going to pick on some state in the middle of nowhere, Nebraska, people may not care about LinkedIn, right? They've got their small communities, they're doing what they do. So it is going to depend on where you are and what you do and how much you care about being seen. Insights is more likely to have C-level executives, particularly, again, I'm going to give you an example, right? You've got somebody who started a business 40 years ago, they're going to retire and die in that company. They're never, ever going to go anyplace else. They may not care about having a LinkedIn profile. Now, where LinkedIn is going to be great is job changes. Their job changes are driven by their users telling you that they went to a new job. So from that perspective, they probably are going to have a better sense of where somebody is if somebody's on LinkedIn. They're going to have a better sense if somebody said, oh, I just changed a job. Our job changes are news driven, so we have to go find them in different ways, shapes, and forms. So again, that's why you're going to use both together. So let's go through how do we find a contact. This is my path, right? I'm going to do some insights, some LinkedIn, and then potentially wrap it back into insights. So here's how I work this. So when I'm in CRM, I'm actually going to go to this account Inside View. People are good at targeting accounts. People aren't really good at finding people. That's actually where the rubber meets the road for many sales folks. So I'm going to go find contacts. So if you don't know the person, the specific person you're trying to get to, what we find is you can look for a name or a job title, but most people are looking for roles and functions. So if I click on the filter here, I can say, tell me who's in sales. And tell me who's high level, director, VP, senior level, C level. So this is who we have in sales, okay? So now if I want to add some of these people, if I like Damien and Amber, I can grab them and I can go add them into my CRM as a contact or a lead. So now I'm going to pull them into my CRM, no copying and pasting, there's the data. Go start working those folks. Okay, so that's how I'd pull them into Inside View, right? So now I'm going to pull that person in. I'm going to go look at Heidi, and then I can start digging into Heidi more. So let me show you how you pull people in for with LinkedIn, right? So now I pull these people in. So in this case, I'm going to go to LinkedIn, and I'm going to go and again, what LinkedIn is great at is recommending, if I could speak well, is recommending other leads for that company. So with LinkedIn Sales Navigator, I have already set my profile for a couple things. From a people perspective, I want sales and marketing leaders. So that is who else they're recommending to me. So they do a fantastic job of that. But I'm viewing an account. I'm going to hunt for other people in that account. So now it's going to take me to the inside view account page in LinkedIn. So again, it popped me into another browser. I'm going to look at all the employees on LinkedIn. And then I get to get more specific. So here for the function, I'm going to scroll down here to sales. And then for the seniority level, I'm going to do VP, director, and manager. So these are the people that they're going to show me. So when I'm in LinkedIn, I cannot grab this person and pull them into my CRM. So Kevin, if I want him in my CRM, I have to go find him. I have to go copy and paste. I have to do a bunch of other things, but I can't directly pull his data in from LinkedIn. That is because of their terms and conditions. You are not allowed to pull somebody into your CRM, right? You can just view them. Now, what I could do with Kevin is I could save him, meaning tag him in LinkedIn, which means now it's going to keep track of him. And anytime I go there, it'll have him as one of my people that I care about. Think of him like a follow. So I can tag him. I can connect with him. I could send him an in-mail. When I send an in-mail, I also have the option to connect that back into my CRM. There's a little button, like that little slider we saw earlier. I can connect him back into my CRM so I can get these people. Now, what's interesting about this list is I'm actually going to take off your managers and your directors here. You will get different lists from us than you will from LinkedIn. I'd probably say 50% of the time you'll get some different lists. So I'll give you an example. Richard here is not at Inside View. He has not been in Inside View for about 12 years. Okay, I've never met Richard, but it still shows that he's at Inside View. Cynthia Garner came up as a VP of Strategic Accounts, and she's the one that has the made-up title. If you look at what we found in Inside View for sales, if you look at our people, you're just going to find different people. So in this case, if I just do VPs, I get Heidi and Damien. So you can see that the records were a little different. Somehow they didn't get Heidi, but they got Damien, right? We didn't have Cynthia because she doesn't have the right title to be in this category. So they're just going to be different. So you're going to take both, use your brains, and kind of work some of that data out. Okay, so I'm going to pause there. Anybody got questions about the contacts? So the last thing I would say, if you find somebody in LinkedIn, so if you want Cynthia Gardner here, what I would do is I would go grab her here. If you want to put her in your CRM, I'm going to grab her and copy this, go back into Insights. This is our Insights list inside of CRM. Put her name here. Actually, hang on one second. I have to take the filters off. Now put her name in. And then when she comes up, I can click her, and now I can add her as a contact or a lead into my CRM. Okay, so that's what I do. So here's what I find. If the reasons that we might want to pull somebody into our CRM, right, is that we want to start doing an email, including other people in on a thread. We do that all the time. We might want to have their email outside of CRM. So I might want to have it in my phone or take it with me, right, or have it in another place as opposed to just in mails. And sometimes I want to have marketing engage with them or somebody else engage with them. So that's why I'd want to pull them into my CRM. Okay, so again, I'm going to pull them into my CRM. I'm going to have them here, and in LinkedIn Sales Navigator, right, I can message people, I can save people, tag them or follow them. I can view them, which means I've seen them. So here's another thing to know about LinkedIn Sales Navigator is when I'm looking at these people, see I've got a first and a CRM. So Damien is a first level connection. He's in my CRM, and he's only in my CRM because I saved it and they made a connection. Okay, they're not going to show you if they're in their CRM if you haven't saved them or tagged them or quote unquote followed them. Okay, now what is interesting also though is if you have an open opportunity in CRM, an open opportunity with people associated to that opportunity, it will automatically knock on LinkedIn's doors and make those connections. So if you have an open op, the account and the people will automatically be tagged in LinkedIn for you, which is cool. Okay. All right, so that's finding people. So let's talk about actually interacting with a person. So I found the person, which is great. So this was just our example of we got different things, right? Cynthia has a made up title. Richard, we don't know who he is. We don't know where Heidi is on the right. By the way, you're going to find that in both of us, right? That's not just a them. We both are going to have those issues. So let's talk about interacting with the context. And I'm going to dig into Heidi. And this is kind of where we're going to start talking about connections. All right, so let's do this. In my CRM, back in my CRM, I'm going to go back into Heidi's record. So this is Heidi. So I'm going to dig into her. So I know what I'm going to talk about. Now I need to figure out what are my decision makers, right? What are their past? What's the connection there? So Heidi has 2 records. I'm going to dig into her here. And this is actually going to take me to her contact record in CRM. And with Inside View, with Insights, I can do the exact same thing that we just did. So we take a second to load. You can see how we're still a white box because we let the CRM page load entirely. We take our turn and wait patiently, and then we load. So that's how we work to make sure that we don't mess up the timing. So this is Heidi's record. So I can follow Heidi. Remember we were talking about that news again. I can add her to my watch list. If she's a decision maker and I care about her, I do want to do that. I can sync her contact records, meaning I can knock on Inside View's door and say, please give me what you have about Heidi. Things to be careful here are job titles and phone numbers. We have HQs, you may have a direct. Okay, so just be a little bit cognizant here. So here's one of the places that LinkedIn does a really good job though. We are all HQ based. Heidi is in Seattle, I am in Los Angeles. On both of our records, we are going to show that we are in San Francisco. So if you need to look for somebody that's geo-specific, LinkedIn is going to be better because everybody kind of updates their own geo, typically. Don't get me wrong, somebody could say something that's incorrect. But for the most case, they're going to be better at the geo than we are, right? Because it's everybody sharing their own stuff. So just understand that that's kind of how that works. So I can also tell Inside View if something's wrong. So if Heidi left Inside View, you can tell us that the person's not there. You could tell us that we got something wrong, and if we validate it, we will fix it immediately. You won't be able to do that on LinkedIn, right? Because I guess unless you complained to Michelle that she had something wrong. So that's a little bit about Insight. So let me talk about now wrapping my arms around Heidi, my decision maker. We talked about this overview box, same thing with companies. This other context is finding other people, but I want to talk about Heidi. So I'm going to go into what's called start a conversation. So think of this as my workspace about Heidi. So for Heidi, I have a really rich profile. This may or may not match what you have on LinkedIn, by the way, and so I'll show you a couple of examples of that. We have our connections, which is how do I get to Heidi, and I'm going to dig into that one separately in a minute. This is her Twitter feed. These are call prep questions based upon the industry, and this is news. If Heidi were in the news, her news would be at the top, and then the company news would be at the bottom. So here's what I want to say about this, is what's interesting about people posting is Heidi is a LinkedIn poster. There are other people that don't post at all, and there are other people that might be, Heidi is a Twitter poster. There's other people that are LinkedIn posters. Quite often, they are not both. So that's why, again, why you want to use both. I'm going to go, if she's a Twitter poster, you can see it here. If she's a LinkedIn poster, we're going to see that when we go to LinkedIn for her. Okay, so again, this is my thing about how am I going to wrap my arms and connect with Heidi. Maybe it's because I'm starting a Girl Scout troop for my daughter, right? Maybe that's it. Maybe we went to school together at Mills College. My favorite story about Twitter was we had a customer that was trying to get into an account. He saw one of his potential decision makers was looking for a fourth on for golf at some cool course, and he spent 5 hours with the guy on the golf course. So there's really great things to kind of figure out, which is how do you now communicate with Heidi? Okay, so that's the person. So now let's go dig into her on LinkedIn. So same thing, I'm going to click over here. I'm going to go to her LinkedIn profile. So again, it gives me this within an iframe in CRM. By the way, so I can see CRM's up here, just FYI, right? I just went to a different section. So this is her profile. So they give you icebreakers, get introduced, related leads. I find it a little bit easier just to go straight to LinkedIn. gives me more space to look at, and it gives me just a little bit more data. So now I'm going to go to Heidi's record on LinkedIn. So here, remember I talked about those open opportunities. That's Heidi. She was connected with an open opportunity. She's in my CRM. I have her saved. Okay, I can message her, I could copy back into CRM. I could add a note, which could copy back into CRM. I get to choose every single time I do that. So here's her education, right? And so these are the things, and then here's her experience. And her experience may or may not be the same. Again, what I do find that's super interesting is the recommended leads. I like when LinkedIn does that for that company. I'm not crazy about recommended leads for other companies because I'm a ADHD person and I can completely go down a rabbit hole, but I do like it when it's at the same company. I think that's a big benefit. All right, so let me show you a different profile. So this is an example. Remember I said how somebody can have a different work history. So Satya, so let me go backwards. So this is Satya Nadella. He's the big guy at Microsoft now. This is his profile with us. And you can see he's got some past employment. We've got some education. He is one of those odd people that is a big tweeter and LinkedIn poster, but he is one of the rare ones. So you can see how his executive news came up at the top. And now if you look at what he's got posted on LinkedIn, he is just the CEO. He said he's never been anything other than the CEO. Now, by the way, he has been at Microsoft for forever, to be clear, but that's his claim to, that's what he does. And so he's got some education. So they're just going to be different. So I'm going to look at both, put them together, and then use them. So let me wrap up the contact info here. So again, to go back on the contact. So from a social media perspective, we're going to be different. Inside View is going to have Twitter. They're going to have LinkedIn posts. And again, usually it is not the same. People either are one or the other. You can do a one-way update of contact info into your CRM from Inside View. For LinkedIn Sales Navigator, you can have a two-way. It's not really a two-way sync. It's really more of a copy. But you can copy the notes, the messages, and emails in both places. You can have emails and phones from Insights. When we talk about emails, whatever place you reside in, you have to follow the email rules, right? Just because you get an email from us does not mean that you can do whatever you want, right? If you're in America, you have to follow the CAN-SPAM Compliant Act. If you're in Canada, you have to follow the CASL Act. If you're in EMEA, you have to follow the GDPR, right? You still have to follow the rules regardless of whether we give you their emails and phone numbers, okay? So that's something to be aware of. Auto track, LinkedIn Sales Navigator will auto track those open ops. You get 50 in-mails a month with them. They're really good at geolocation. We're getting there at geolocation, but I think at the end of the day, because ours is not user-generated, LinkedIn may be better than that. So we have that in our database, and we'll be presenting that in Insights inside of CRM later in 2019. So there's a little bit of difference between how you do that, okay? All right, any questions so far about people? Because I'm actually going to dig into the intro, the warm connections, which are very different. All right, so let's talk about warm introductions. The warm introduction is really where we all succeed. So here's the difference between connections between the two of us, and they're very different, believe it or not. Insights is going to be private and anonymous just for your company. So if all of us on the phone are in one company, we are not sharing our connections with anybody else. It's just ours internally. LinkedIn by default is going to be public, and there's pros and cons to that. Insights is shared by all Insights users automatically. And if somebody is a non-CRM user, like I've seen executives that don't use CRM, I've seen R&D that doesn't use CRM, or accounting, right? There's all kinds of people that don't use CRM. They can have a free version of Insights and come play the game, that connections game. LinkedIn Sales Navigator, the one that you get with Microsoft, has what's called Team Link, and it wraps anybody who's at the same company together, which is a good thing. And then Insights is going to be 6 degrees of separation. And so we're going to bubble up some really weird things. So let me go show you some examples of that. So I'm going to jump into Heidi. She's my guinea pig here that I talk about. So this is Heidi. Remember, I was back here on her start a conversation. This is also shown in the other contacts. The same grid, it's called a connection grid, is shown in both places. So this is what hers looks like. So I'm going to drag it open a little bit more so we can talk about this. So this is Heidi's connection. So this is me, am connected to Heidi through Outlook and Gmail, but let's assume I'm not. Okay. So here's the thing. I have this coworker, Ashwina, that has Heidi in her Outlook. This is going to help me prioritize who do I ask for an introduction for. If I go to LinkedIn, I have 219 connections. It gets really overwhelming when you have that many connections. So for this, I could say, Ashwina has her in her Outlook, so she probably knows her pretty well. And that is a generalized assumption, only because most people, when they have somebody in their Outlook or Gmail, it's because they actually need their phone number when they're not on the computer. Okay, just a generalized assumption. Art Small is a guy that I know. I'm connected with him on LinkedIn. I have him in my Outlook. He used to work with Heidi at the exact same time at Bank of America. And this is where you're going to start seeing those differences between how we connect and how LinkedIn connects. So LinkedIn might show you that if they're connected to each other, then you might go look at both profiles. You're probably not going to go look at all the profiles that are connected to Heidi. So this one's going to bubble it up for me. They worked at Bank of America at the exact same time, and those were their titles. There's another interesting one down here. Let me go down here to Brian. Sorry, guys, I didn't mean to scroll down that far. To Brian. So Brian and Heidi worked together at Hoover's at the exact same time, based upon their dates. He was a channel manager. She was a VP of Biz Dev. They probably know each other. Okay. And then the last thing that we do that LinkedIn doesn't do is I'm going to scroll down here to the referenceable customers. So in my world, if I'm an account exec, let's say I own 30 accounts. I know my accounts. I may know another 30 because I've heard people talk about them, or maybe I've transitioned, but I'm not going to know all 5,000 customers or all 1,000 customers. I'm not going to know who all of those were. One of the things that we have the opportunity to do is to keep track of those referenceable customers and insights. I can see she worked at First Research, in which case I could go back and say, hey, look, right? I do my research. Hey, look, you worked at First Research. Here's how we've helped them. Does it make sense for us to talk to you and do the same thing for Inside View? Okay, so they're just going to be different types of connections that pop up. So let me show you a real world example here. I was trying to get to William Snyder at Amgen. So I had a couple people in my database, Nicole, Visser, and Michelle. Nicole used to work with William at Asset Management Partners. Visser and Michelle Newbon worked with him at Fitzer. I don't have any connections to William on LinkedIn at all. And those three people on the left are not connected to him on LinkedIn at all. Okay, so they're just going to be different. So I would use both. So let me show you the real world example of Heidi, of what I do with Heidi. So let me go to LinkedIn. This is my Heidi record in LinkedIn again. So when we say there's ways to connect, there's a couple of ways. What I like to do is click on this introduction path. 222 is too many for me personally. That would, right? So I can keep going down this list. What I do find is super interesting, and I don't know if you guys know this, you can actually see these are the people that I'm shared with. These are 44 people that work with Heidi today, supposedly. That gets more interesting. Even more so, it might be these 11 people worked with Heidi, right? So you can see there was the Brian connection with Heidi. That connection that we had with Art Small, not here, just FYI. So they're just different, but I do like the 44 work with, the 11 worked with, and if I keep scrolling over here, you could also do, and these two people went to school. I don't find this quite as helpful in either platforms, honestly, unless I went to school with her. But even then, it depends on the school. So I'm more inclined when I dig into the connections with LinkedIn is to get more specific first. The shared groups I haven't found as successful unless you kind of want to go post and do it as a kind of a little bit more of a passive aggressive way. But I do really like the 11 worked with Heidi, the 44 work with Heidi, and then you've got some shared connections. And that's the path that I would take once I'm in LinkedIn. All right. And then the last one I want to show you side-by-side examples. This is my path to Amgen. here is I had a bunch of connections to Amgen here, of which I went and looked at these, and I have probably 8 really good connections into Amgen, the company. When I looked at my LinkedIn for Sales Navigator at 394, I actually went through all 394, and there was not one person that I knew, because these were all second degrees, that could actually introduce me into Amgen. So again, use them both. I would start with Insights and then go to LinkedIn, just because of the way that we distinguish how you know them from a prioritization standpoint. All right, so let me talk about hunting for new business. So this is the last thing we're going to talk about, and then I'll open it up for quick questions. So hunting for new business, again, Insights is a data, InsightView is a data aggregator. We're going to have more accounts because that's what we do for a living, right? LinkedIn is just a community. Filters are going to be different. When you search for people, we have a management only. They'll do everybody, and there are pros and cons to both, right? And then the contact geolocation, they're going to do a better job, and ours is on the roadmap. So let me show you a real world example. So I have these two set up side by side. So this is how Insights looks, and we have this list building over here. LinkedIn Sales Navigator, I went to search for accounts, and that's how I got to both these pages. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, give me all of the people in California. Start with companies in California. So you can see we have 900,000, and I'm going to do the same thing here. And the reason that I'm going to start in Insights is because I can pull companies down in Insights and just put them into my CRM. I cannot do that in Sales Navigator. I'd have to copy them. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do North America. My apologies, guys. I meant to do California. California is who I meant to do. Let's get rid of North America here. So you can see right off the bat, we've got different numbers. We've got 900,000. They've got, oh, they didn't update it appropriately. Hang on. That's what happens when you do it the wrong way. California. Yeah, I started off the wrong search. So it's not going to give you the same. You can see that they have 545. We've got 900,000. If I get more specific into banks, you can subset, you can get deeper into both of us. So I'm just going to do banks in general here. I'm going to go do banks in general over here as well. They have 2 bank categories, and I'll do both just to do a little more apples to apples. So I did both. So again, you can see that we've got 16,000 companies, they've got 2,400. So again, the more specific I get, the less they're going to have, because they are not a data aggregator. They are, if you play with us, we'll tell people about you. So it's different. So in this case over here, though, I could say, you know what, I want this company. I can see that City National's already in my database, First Republic's already in my CRM. I also want Federal Reserve. I grab my companies, however many I want, and I'm going to go click to the Add CRM. And I just created accounts in my CRM. So you can do that with 500 companies per user per month. So if there's 30 people in LedgeView, that's 30 people times 500 companies. Most people don't use that, but that is the capability. So I'm going to go grab companies. So we're really good at grabbing companies. If I'm going to search for people, so let me show you actually something really cool about companies, though. If I have all these companies, it's too many to search for. Remember that we were talking about those business agents? I can say, give me any of those companies that had a leadership change, and it will pull it down to something super small that I can go concentrate on, right? 140 is a lot better than 16,000. And the more specific you get in the revenue and the size, the smaller and smaller that gets. So it's super cool. So from a people perspective, if you're looking at managers above, I'm inclined to start with Inside View. If you want people in an account, go do the account search that we just did. If you want people as leads, though, go to the people. You can get it down farther and farther with job function, job level, people with emails, and you can get more and more specific, and then you just add these people. And then I would add these people as leads into my database, right? So that's kind of a little bit of the difference. I'm inclined to go search in Insights first and pull what I can down, because you can put it into your CRM. And if we don't have something for some reason from a people standpoint, find them in LinkedIn Sales Navigator, and then you can add them or do something different. So with that, just a really quick summarization for the differences, right? Where we sit is going to be potentially a little bit differently. Insights is all within CRM. You never leave into another box. LinkedIn Sales Navigator is going to pop you out. The syncing or downloading of data is going to be different, right? We'll download accounts and contacts and leads with insights and inside view. LinkedIn Sales Navigator is just going to sync notes in mails and messages, and the tracking, right? And the follows. The data strength is going to be different. We're going to be really deep in account. Inside view, LinkedIn Sales Navigator is going to be great with overall people, right? Everybody in the company. Connections are different. They are quite different. Support and training, you get direct access to humans with inside view and us. LinkedIn Sales Navigator is really hard to get to, and I can tell you because I've tried. They do have something called a point drive, which is asset tracking. When you send an email, did somebody click on it and open it, which is super, super cool. Go check it out if you have LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Super cool. We don't have that. And then the pricing is just going to be different. So with that, I'm actually going to pass by the key takeaways really quick. Use them both is what this says. Use them both. Use them both. Use your brains. We have a ton of other training. We have user training for insights. We have connections training. We have an admin workshop of best business practices. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Julia. Julia, want to close and then give them, here's the emails for everybody.
Yes, thank you so much, Michelle, for all of that great information. I loved the clear comparisons you presented, as I'm sure our audience did today. If you did miss it in my intro, we recorded today's presentation and will be sending everyone a link to access this webinar on demand. That email will be coming from LedgeView Partners, so be sure to add at ledgeviewpartners.com to your safe senders list if you haven't already, so you have no trouble receiving it. With any questions you may have that you didn't get to ask during today's presentation or that come up later, we ask that you reach out to insights@insideview.com and CC contact us at ledgeviewpartners.com. We also encourage you to visit our website at ledgeviewpartners.com for additional on-demand resources you may like that cover some of the insight and information Michelle shared with you today. Join us for our next webinar on Wednesday, October 10th, as we talk what's possible with Power BI to extend Dynamics 365/CRM. You can register for that at ledgeviewpartners.com. Thanks again so much for joining us today, and we hope to see you again on future webinars and hope your October is off to a great start so far. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everybody.